The first thing I noticed when I opened my eyes was the poster. That damned poster of the solar system I'd hung up when I was 19, with Saturn's rings slightly peeling at the edge. I stared at it, my heart pounding so violently I thought my ribs might crack. This couldn't be real. That poster had been thrown out years ago, along with everything else from my old apartment when Samuel decided we needed to upgrade our aesthetic. I sat up slowly, my hands trembling as I gripped the thin cotton sheets. Sheets I recognized, sheets I'd bought at a discount store because they were all I could afford. The room spun slightly and I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to make sense of the impossible. The last thing I remembered was pain. Excruciating, all-consuming pain as the knife slid between my ribs in that alley behind the restaurant where I'd been lured under false pretenses. Samuel's face had been the last thing I'd seen, twisted in something between disgust and relief as he watched me fall. And Eli, God, Eli had been there too, my own brother, turning away as I reached for him with bloodied hands. But now I was here. In my old bedroom. In the apartment I'd shared with 3 other students before everything fell apart. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, an ancient model I'd forgotten I ever owned. With shaking fingers I picked it up and checked the date. September 15th. 5 years before my death. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered onto the floor. This was the day. The day everything had started to unravel. The day I'd received the acceptance letter for the graduate scholarship to study engineering abroad. Full tuition, living expenses, everything I'd worked toward since high school. And it was also the day Eli had called me, crying, begging me to help him because he'd gotten into his dream school but couldn't afford it. I remembered sitting right here in this exact spot, torn between my future and my brother's tears. I remembered the guilt that had eaten at me as Eli sobbed about how this was his only chance, and how our parents couldn't help because they'd spent everything on my undergraduate degree. The decision had felt impossible then. Now it felt absurdly simple. I picked up my phone and stared at Eli's contact information. My thumb hovered over the call button, muscle memory almost betraying me. But then I saw it, really saw it. How many times had Eli called me over the years? Always needing something. Money for rent when he'd spent his salary on designer clothes. Bail money when he'd gotten drunk and disorderly. Connections for jobs he'd inevitably quit because they were beneath him. And how had he repaid me? By sleeping with my husband. By helping frame me for embezzlement. By watching me die. I deleted his contact. The action should have felt momentous, but instead, it felt like shedding a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body. I moved through my morning routine mechanically, shower, coffee, the same breakfast I'd eaten 1,000 times. But everything felt different now. Sharper. Clear. My laptop sat on my desk and I opened it with purpose. The scholarship acceptance letter was there in my inbox, dated yesterday. I read it 3 times, absorbing every word. Full funding for 2 years in Copenhagen, studying under Professor Nielsen, one of the most respected engineers in sustainable architecture. The opportunity I'd thrown away for Eli. Not this time. I hit accept and felt something crack open in my chest. Not pain but something like the first breath after almost drowning. My phone rang. Eli. Of course. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. In my previous life, I would have answered on the first ring, my heart already racing with worry about what crisis had befallen him. Now I just watched it ring, feeling nothing but a cold, quiet fury. On the 4th ring I answered. Ben. Finally. Eli's voice was thick with tears, real or manufactured I could no longer tell. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Did you get my email? I've been busy, I said, my voice flat. Busy? Ben, this is important. Did you see what I sent you? The acceptance letter from Columbia? This is everything I've ever wanted, but the financial aid isn't enough and Mom and Dad can't help and I just... His voice cracked convincingly. I need you. Those 3 words. How many times had he used them as a weapon? I need you, Ben. You're the only one who understands. You're the only one who can help. Congratulations on the acceptance, I said. I'm sure you'll figure out the financing. Silence. Then, what? You're resourceful, Eli. You'll find a way. Ben, are you serious right now? I'm your brother. You got that scholarship, didn't you? The one you wouldn't shut up about? You could defer it, help me get through my first year, and then... No. The word hung in the air between us like a guillotine blade. What do you mean no? Ben, this is my future we're talking about. It's my future too, I said quietly. And I'm choosing it this time. This time? What the hell does that mean? His voice shifted from pleading to angry in a heartbeat. You're being selfish. After everything Mom and Dad did for you, you can't help your own brother? There it was. The guilt trip. The manipulation that had worked so perfectly the first time around. I can't help you, Eli. Good luck with Columbia. I hung up before he could respond and immediately blocked his number. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear or doubt. From rage. From grief for the person I'd been. The person who'd believed that love meant sacrifice until there was nothing left to give. I made myself another coffee and sat down at my desk. If I was really back, if this impossible second chance was real, then I needed to be smart. Cool. Strategic. I opened a new document and began to type. People who destroyed me. 1. Samuel Wright husband, future ex. Manipulator. User. Murderer. 2. Eli Taylor brother. Betrayer. Accomplice to murder. 3. Marcus Chen Samuel's business partner. The one who'd helped them frame me. I stared at the list, then added a title at the top. Debts to collect. Over the next few hours, I began researching, remembering, planning. I knew things now that I hadn't known the first time around. I knew that Samuel's company, which wouldn't be founded for another 3 years, had succeeded because of an idea he'd stolen from a colleague. I knew Marcus had offshore accounts he used to dodge taxes. I knew Eli had a gambling problem he'd hidden from everyone except his dealers. Knowledge was power. And I had 5 years' worth of it. A knock on my door interrupted my planning. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, paranoia seized me. But when I checked the peephole, I saw my roommate Tyler holding a pizza box. "Dude, I know you're in there," he called out. "I got extra pepperoni. Consider it a congratulations for that insane scholarship." Tyler. God, I'd forgotten about Tyler. He'd been a good friend, someone who'd tried to stay in touch even after I'd dropped out of the program. But I'd pushed him away, too consumed with Samuel's needs and Eli's crises to maintain any friendships. I opened the door. Tyler grinned at me, his hair slightly too long and his glasses smudged. There he is. The future engineering genius. "Come on, let's celebrate before you abandon us for fancy European education." Something in my chest tightened. Tyler had no idea what I'd been through, what I would have gone through. To him, I was still just Ben, the studious guy who helped him with physics homework and never complained about washing dishes. "Thanks," I said, accepting the pizza. "You didn't have to do this." "Sure I did. It's not every day my roommate becomes an international scholar." He paused, studying my face. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I had. My own. "I'm fine," I said. "Just a lot to process." We ate pizza in my room, Tyler chattering about his chemistry project and his disastrous date last weekend. I let his words wash over me, finding an unexpected comfort in the normalcy. This was what life could be, should be. Simple moments with people who cared without expecting you to bleed yourself dry. After Tyler left, I returned to my laptop. My phone buzzed with messages from Eli's number. Apparently he'd texted before I'd blocked him completely. I read them with clinical detachment. "You're making a huge mistake. Mom and Dad are going to be so disappointed in you. I can't believe you're this selfish." "Fine. Don't help me. I'll remember this." That last message made me laugh. A cold, bitter sound. Yes, I thought. Remember it. Remember that I chose myself. Remember that I didn't save you. Because this time I was going to watch you drown. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparation. I secured my visa, arranged my housing in Copenhagen, and began liquidating everything I wouldn't need. Every step felt like shedding old skin, painful but necessary. The hardest part was avoiding Samuel. In my original timeline, we'd met at a coffee shop 2 weeks after I'd declined the scholarship. I'd been depressed, lost, drowning in regret, and he'd appeared like a lifeline. Beautiful, charming Samuel with his easy smile and his promises that we'd figure it out together. I'd fallen fast and hard. And he'd caught me only to slowly crush me in his grip. This time, I avoided that coffee shop like it carried plague. I changed my routine, took different routes, made sure our paths wouldn't cross. It felt paranoid, but I couldn't risk it. I couldn't trust myself not to fall for his lies again, not when the loneliness and grief were still so raw. My phone rang one evening as I was packing. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Benjamin Taylor?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Yes. This is Dr. Sarah Chen from the Copenhagen Technical University. I'm calling about your scholarship acceptance. We've reviewed your portfolio, and I wanted to personally welcome you to the program. Your work on sustainable housing design is remarkable." I sat down heavily on my bed. "Dr. Chen." I'd never gotten this call in my previous life because I'd declined the scholarship. But I'd heard of her. She was a legend in the field, one of the youngest department heads in the university's history. Thank you, I managed. I'm honored. We're looking forward to having you. I actually wanted to discuss an opportunity with you. We have a project starting in January, a collaboration with a Danish architecture firm to design low-income housing using sustainable materials. Your thesis proposal aligns perfectly with it. Would you be interested in joining as a research assistant? It comes with a stipend. My mind reeled. This was more than I'd ever dreamed of. More than I'd allowed myself to dream of. Yes, I said. Absolutely yes. Excellent. I'll send you the details. See you in September, Mr. Taylor. After she hung up, I sat there in the growing darkness of my room, the phone still pressed to my ear. This was what I'd given up. This opportunity, this future, this life. For Eli. For Samuel. For people who'd seen my sacrifice as weakness rather than love. Never again. My resolve hardened into something diamond-sharp. I would take every opportunity, seize every chance, build a life so brilliant that their betrayal would pale in comparison. And when I was strong enough, established enough, untouchable enough, then I would destroy them. The week before my departure, my parents called. I'd been dreading this conversation. Benjamin, sweetheart, your brother told us about your disagreement. My mother's voice was gentle but tinged with disappointment. He's really struggling with the tuition situation. I know, Mom. And you're still going to Copenhagen? Even though Eli needs help? I closed my eyes, remembering how this conversation had gone the first time, or rather, how it would have gone if I hadn't canceled the scholarship. The guilt, the pressure, the implicit message that good sons sacrifice for family. Mom, I love you, but this is my future. Eli is 23 years old. He needs to figure this out himself. That's very cold, Benjamin. We raised you better than this. The words stung even though I'd been expecting them. But I'd learned something in death and rebirth. Sometimes love looks like boundaries. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. Maybe you did, I said quietly. Or maybe you raised me to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. Either way, I'm done burning. I hung up before she could respond, my heart hammering. I'd never stood up to my parents before. I'd been the dutiful son, the responsible one, the problem solver. It felt terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and let myself remember everything. The years of working 2 jobs while Samuel built his business with our money. The nights I'd gone hungry so Eli could make rent. The slow erosion of my identity until I was nothing but a resource to be exploited. And the end. God, the end. The alley had been cold. I remembered that detail with perfect clarity. Samuel had called me, voice panicked, saying he needed to meet me urgently. Something about investors pulling out, needing my advice. I'd gone without question, always the fool, always ready to help. Marcus had been waiting with him. I'd known immediately that something was wrong, but by then it was too late. They'd accused me of embezzling from the company, planted evidence, forged documents, everything needed to paint me as a criminal. And when I'd threatened to fight back to expose the truth, Samuel had looked at me with such cold contempt. You were always so pathetically grateful for scraps of affection, he'd said. Did you really think I loved you? You were convenient. A meal ticket. But you've outlived your usefulness. The knife had slid in so smoothly. Eli had appeared then, my brother, and I'd reached for him with blood-slick hands. But he just stepped back, face twisted in disgust. This is your fault, Eli had said. If you'd just stayed out of the way, none of this would have been necessary. I died there, in the garbage-strewn alley, alone and unloved, understanding finally that I'd wasted my entire life on people who'd seen me as nothing more than a tool. But somehow, impossibly, I'd gotten another chance. I wouldn't waste it. The plane touched down in Copenhagen on a gray September morning, rain streaking the windows like tears. I'd slept through most of the flight, too exhausted from weeks of preparation to stay awake. Now, as I gathered my carry-on and shuffled through customs, I felt the weight of my decision settling over me. I was alone. Truly alone for the first time in my life. No family calling with emergencies, no Samuel demanding my attention, no friends I'd neglected to check on. Just me and the future I'd chosen. It should have felt terrifying. Instead, it felt like freedom. The university had arranged temporary housing. A small studio in Nørrebro, a vibrant neighborhood full of students and artists. As the taxi wound through streets lined with colorful buildings and bikes, I felt something unfamiliar stirring in my chest. Hope, maybe. Or the ghost of it. My studio was tiny but perfect. Large windows overlooking a quiet street, a kitchenette I'd actually use, and best of all, silence. No one needing anything from me. No obligations except to myself. I unpacked methodically, hanging clothes in the small closet, arranging my books on the single shelf. Every item felt significant, chosen by me for my life. Not sacrificed, not given away, not sold to cover someone else's mistakes. That evening, I walked to the university campus for orientation. The Technical University of Copenhagen sprawled across Lyngby, modern buildings mixed with historic architecture. Students clustered in groups, speaking Danish, English, a dozen other languages I couldn't identify. I felt anonymous here, invisible in the best way. Benjamin Taylor? I turned to find a tall woman with short silver hair approaching. Dr. Sarah Chin, though she looked younger than her voice had suggested on the phone. Dr. Chin. Thank you for the opportunity. She smiled warmly. I should be thanking you. Your portfolio was one of the strongest we received. I'm excited to have you on the housing project. She paused, studying me with sharp, intelligent eyes. You look tired. Rough flight. Just a lot of changes. Well, get some rest. The program is intense but rewarding. We have a social tomorrow evening. Good chance to meet your cohort. I recommend coming. Some of your classmates are brilliant, and you'll need allies during the tough months ahead. She was right, of course. In my previous life, I'd been too isolated, too consumed with problems back home to form real connections. This time would be different. The social was held at a bar near campus, warm and crowded with students from at least a dozen countries. I arrived early, nursing a beer and watching people filter in. Groups formed quickly, extroverts finding extroverts, people from the same countries clustering together. I was content to observe until someone sat down next to me. American? I glanced over. The man was probably a few years older than me, with dark hair, warm brown eyes, and an easy smile that didn't feel performative like Samuel's had been. He wore a simple blue sweater and jeans, casual but put together. That obvious? I asked. The beer choice gave it away. Europeans don't drink Carlsberg at bars. Too much of a tourist thing. His accent was American too, with a slight southern softness. Aaron Rivers. Architecture, second year. Benjamin Taylor. Engineering, first year. Ah, a fresh victim. Aaron's smile widened. Fair warning, the first semester will kick your ass. But you look like you can handle it. There was something about his presence that felt safe, steady. Like he was someone who meant what he said and didn't expect anything in return for basic kindness. We talked for hours, effortlessly. Aaron told me about growing up in North Carolina, how he'd come to Copenhagen to study sustainable urban design after working for a firm in New York that he'd found soulless. I told him about my background, carefully edited, leaving out the parts about betrayal and murder and impossible second chances. So you gave up a scholarship before? Aaron asked at one point, his tone careful. That must have been hard to come back from. I'd mentioned it vaguely, testing the waters. I made a mistake. Put someone else's needs above my own. But I got a second chance to fix it. Good for you. Aaron's voice was warm with approval. Too many people spend their whole lives sacrificing themselves for people who don't appreciate it. Takes courage to choose yourself. Something in my chest cracked open at those words. I'd expected judgment, guilt-tripping, the same disappointed reactions I'd gotten from my family. But Aaron just nodded like choosing myself was the most natural thing in the world. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? For not making me feel selfish for it. Aaron looked at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Benjamin, you're not selfish for having boundaries. You're human. Anyone who made you feel otherwise wasn't looking out for your best interests. We exchanged numbers before the night ended, Aaron insisting that I text him if I needed help navigating the program or the city. As I walked home through the quiet Copenhagen streets, I felt something I hadn't experienced in so long I'd almost forgotten the sensation. Contentment. Maybe this second chance wasn't just about revenge. Maybe it was about learning to live again. Classes started the following week with a brutal intensity. Dr. Chin hadn't been exaggerating, the program demanded everything. Long hours in studios, complex projects that required both technical skill and creative thinking, readings in Danish and English that left my eyes burning. I loved every minute of it. For the first time in my adult life, I was challenged intellectually rather than emotionally. No one needed me to fix their problems or save them from consequences. Just me, my work, and the satisfaction of creating something meaningful. Aaron became a steady presence in my life, though neither of us pushed for more than friendship. We studied together at cafes, grabbed dinner after late nights in the studio, explored Copenhagen on weekends. He had a calm, grounding energy that balanced my intensity. Where I was focused and driven, he was relaxed and observant, noticing details I missed. One evening in October, we were working in my studio on our respective projects when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, US area code. I almost didn't answer, but Aaron glanced over. You should probably get that. Could be important. I picked up. Hello? Ben? Oh, thank God. It's Mom. I hadn't spoken to my parents since that last conversation before leaving. Part of me had hoped they'd respect my boundaries. Apparently not. Hi, Mom. Ben, sweetheart, we need to talk about Eli. He's in trouble. Of course he was. In my original timeline, this would have been the first of many crises I'd have to manage from across the ocean. Eli had dropped out of Columbia after one semester, unable to handle the workload. Then he'd bounced between jobs, apartments, relationships, always needing rescue. What kind of trouble? He borrowed money from the wrong people. For his tuition. And now they're demanding repayment with interest and he can't afford it, and Ben, I'm scared. These people sound dangerous. Loan sharks. I remembered this too. Eli had gotten into gambling to relieve stress from school, lost more than he could pay back, and the debt had spiraled. In the previous timeline, I'd wired him $15,000. Money I didn't have, money I'd had to borrow against my own future. How much does he owe? I asked, my voice flat. $30,000. Ben, I know that's a lot, but you have that scholarship money and… No. Aaron looked up from his laptop, his expression concerned. Ben, please. He's your brother. He's terrified. If something happens to him, then he'll learn a valuable lesson about consequences. The words came out colder than I'd intended, but I was so tired. Tired of being the solution to everyone else's problems. I'm not sending money. Benjamin Taylor, how can you be so heartless? After everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? I laughed, bitter and sharp. You mean paying for college like parents are supposed to? That doesn't entitle you to my entire future, Mom. Eli made his choices. He has to live with them. You've changed, she said, voice small and hurt. Copenhagen has changed you. No, I replied. I've just stopped setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. If you can't accept that, maybe we need some distance. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline and anger and something like grief. Aaron was watching me carefully. Family trouble? My brother got himself into debt. Wants me to fix it. I set the phone down harder than necessary. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being their emergency fund. Then don't, Aaron said simply. You're allowed to have boundaries, Benjamin. Even with family. Especially with family. Everyone acts like I'm being cruel. You're being honest. There's a difference. Aaron closed his laptop and turned to face me fully. Look, I don't know your whole story. But I know what it looks like when someone's been used as an emotional dumping ground their whole life. You have this tension in your shoulders whenever your phone rings. Like you're bracing for impact. That's not normal and it's not healthy. His words cut through my defenses like a scalpel. How did he see so clearly what I'd spent years denying? It's complicated, I said weakly. It's really not. Either they respect your boundaries or they don't get access to you. Simple as that. Aaron leaned forward, his eyes intense. You deserve people in your life who celebrate your success, not resent you for having boundaries. Don't let them make you feel guilty for thriving. Something broke open inside me, something that had been sealed shut since I'd woken up 5 years in the past. And before I could stop myself, I was telling Aaron everything. Not about the rebirth, that was too impossible, but about Samuel, about Eli, about the years of sacrifice and betrayal. The words poured out of me like poison being lanced from a wound. Aaron listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from concern to angry on my behalf. Jesus Christ, Benjamin, he said when I finished. That's not love. That's abuse. Systematic, deliberate abuse. Hearing someone else name it was like being given permission to feel the rage I'd been suppressing. I know that now. But for so long I thought it was normal. That's what family did, you sacrificed for each other. Sacrifice is supposed to be mutual. What you're describing is just extraction. They took everything you had and blamed you for not having more to give. Aaron ran a hand through his hair, clearly trying to calm himself. I'm glad you got away. I'm glad you're here. Me too. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of my confession hanging between us. Then Aaron reached over and squeezed my shoulder, brief, grounding. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you're incredibly strong. And brave. It takes guts to walk away from people who've conditioned you to believe you owe them everything. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just nodded. That night after Aaron left, I opened my laptop and looked at the list I'd made weeks ago. The names still stared back at me: Samuel, Marcus. It was time to start planning in earnest. I created a new folder on my hard drive, password protected and encrypted, Project Reckoning. Inside, I began compiling everything I remembered from my previous life. Dates, events, business decisions, personal secrets. Samuel's company would launch in 2 years with stolen intellectual property. Marcus would start his tax evasion scheme in 18 months. Eli would meet his future cocaine dealer at a party next spring. I knew all of it, and I was going to use it. But I had to be patient, strategic. I couldn't just expose them now. No one would believe me and I'd reveal my hand too early. No, I needed to build myself up first. Become successful, connected, unassailable. Then when they were at their peak, I'd pull the foundation out from under them. The revenge would be slow, calculated, and devastating. And it would be perfectly legal. Winter descended on Copenhagen with a gentle persistence, wrapping the city in early darkness and frost. The days grew shorter, but my life felt expansive in ways I'd never experienced. The housing project was progressing beautifully. My designs for modular, sustainable low-income units had impressed Dr. Chen enough that she'd submitted them to an international competition. Aaron and I had fallen into an easy rhythm. Study sessions that stretched into late dinners, weekend walks through Tivoli Gardens, comfortable silences that spoke of deep understanding. He'd become my anchor, though I was careful not to need him the way I'd needed, or thought I'd needed, people before. But something was shifting between us. Lingering glances that lasted a beat too long. Touches that felt electric. The way my heart raced when he smiled at me like I was someone worth knowing. It was early December when everything changed. We were in his apartment, larger than mine, decorated with architectural sketches and plants he somehow kept alive despite the Danish winter. I'd come over to celebrate. My design had won third place in the competition, earning a cash prize and publication in a prestigious journal. Aaron had cooked dinner, something Spanish he'd learned from a roommate in New York, and we'd gone through a bottle of wine while discussing our projects. Now we sat on his couch, the city lights glittering through his windows, and I felt brave in a way I hadn't in either lifetime. "Can I ask you something?" I said, the wine making me bold. "Anything. Why have you been so good to me? I mean, really? You barely knew me and you just showed up. Stayed. Expected nothing back." Aaron was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes searching mine. "You want the honest answer?" "Always. Because when I first saw you at that social, you looked like someone carrying the weight of the world. And I recognized it because I'd been there too." He shifted closer, his shoulder brushing mine. "My ex. The reason I left New York, he spent 3 years convincing me I was too much. Too ambitious, too focused on work, too difficult to love. I believed him for a long time." My chest tightened. What changed? I realized he needed me small so he could feel big. And I decided I'd rather be alone than diminished. Aaron's voice was soft but fierce. "When I met you, I saw someone who'd been made to feel the same way. I wanted you to know that wasn't true. That you were worth more than how you'd been treated." The vulnerability in his words cracked something open in me. Without thinking, I reached for his hand, lacing our fingers together. His skin was warm, calloused from years of drafting and building models. "I'm glad you stayed," I whispered. "Benjamin?" He said my name like a prayer, like something precious. "I need you to know, I'm not expecting anything. Your friendship is enough. But I also need to be honest with you about how I feel because pretending is exhausting." My heart was hammering so hard I could barely breathe. "How do you feel?" "Like I want to kiss you. Like I have for weeks. Like every time you smile at something you've created, I fall a little harder." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "But only if you want that too. Only if you're ready. Because you've been hurt badly and I won't add to that." I'd been hurt. God, I'd been destroyed. Samuel had taught me that love was transaction, that affection had to be earned through sacrifice. But Aaron was offering something different. Something that felt like sunshine after years of darkness. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "I don't trust easily anymore. I don't know if I remember how to be vulnerable without it being weaponized." "Then we go slow. As slow as you need. And if you ever want to stop, we stop. No guilt, no pressure, no consequences." Aaron brought my hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to my knuckles. "You're in control here, Benjamin. Always." The care in those words, the explicit consent, the patience, the understanding, undid me completely. "Kiss me," I breathed. "Please." Aaron cupped my face with both hands, thumbs brushing my cheekbones, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. But I didn't want to. I leaned in, closing the distance between us, and when our lips met, it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. The kiss was soft at first, exploratory, asking questions with every gentle press of lips. Aaron tasted like wine and something uniquely him, and I felt myself melting into his touch. His hand slid into my hair, careful and reverent, and I gripped his sweater, pulling him closer. When he deepened the kiss, his tongue sliding against mine, I made a sound I didn't recognize, needy and desperate and alive. Samuel's kisses had always been possessive, taking. Aaron's was giving, generous, like he wanted to pour all his care into me through this connection. We broke apart, both breathing hard, and Aaron rested his forehead against mine. "Okay?" he asked, voice rough. "More than okay." I was shaking slightly, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion. I feel everything." "Good. You should feel everything. You deserve to." He pressed another kiss to my lips, then my cheek, then my temple. "We can stop here if you want. Or we can keep going. Whatever you need." What I needed was to feel wanted without owing anything in return. To experience desire that wasn't about control or manipulation. To be touched by someone who saw me as more than a resource. "Don't stop," I said. "Please don't stop." Aaron kissed me again, deeper this time, and I lost myself in the sensation. His hands mapped my body over my clothes, shoulders, back, waist, learning me with patient attention. When he pulled back to look at me, his eyes were dark with want but still gentle. "Bedroom?" he suggested. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Aaron stood and offered his hand. I took it, letting him lead me down the short hallway to his room. The space was simple, a large bed with white sheets, more plants, soft lighting. He turned to me, hands settling on my hips. "At any point if you want to stop." "I know. I trust you." And I realized, speaking the words, that they were true. I trusted Aaron in a way I'd never trusted anyone, including my past self. We undressed each other slowly, Aaron pausing between each layer to check in, to kiss newly exposed skin, to murmur how beautiful I was. No one had ever called me beautiful before. Useful, yes. Convenient. But never beautiful. When we were both bare, Aaron guided me onto the bed, covering my body with his. The weight of him felt grounding rather than trapping, and when he kissed me again, I arched up into him, desperate for more contact. "Tell me what you want," Aaron whispered against my throat. "Use your words, Benjamin. I want to hear you. Touch me. Please." "I need." My words dissolved into a moan as his hand wrapped around me, stroking with perfect pressure. "This?" His voice was thick with desire. "You need this." "Yes. God, yes." Aaron worked me with skilled hands, building pleasure with agonizing patience. He watched my face the entire time, reading every expression, adjusting his touch to maximize my pleasure. When I was trembling and incoherent, he slowed down, kissing me through my frustrated whimpers. "Not yet," he murmured. "I want this to last. Want you to feel everything." He reached for the nightstand, pulling out supplies, and looked at me with a question in his eyes. "I want to make love to you. Properly. If you want that." "I do. I want you inside me." Aaron's careful preparation was an act of worship. He took his time opening me up, one finger then two then three, kissing me through every stretch and burn, praising me until I was begging incoherently. "Please, Aaron. Need you. Need to feel you. I've got you. I've got you, beautiful." He positioned himself, pressing in with aching slowness, giving me time to adjust. "Breathe for me. That's it." The stretch was intense but not painful, especially with how thoroughly he'd prepared me. When he was fully seated, we both stilled, breathing together, foreheads pressed close. "Okay?" he asked, voice strained with the effort of holding still. "Perfect. You're perfect. Move, please move." Aaron set a slow, deep rhythm that had me gasping with every thrust. He found that spot inside me that made me see stars, angling to hit it repeatedly, and I clawed at his back, lost in sensation. "You're so tight," he groaned. "So perfect. Feels so good around me, Benjamin." The praise, the pleasure, the care, it was overwhelming. I felt tears streaming down my face, though I wasn't sad. Aaron noticed immediately, stilling with concern. "Too much?" "No, not too much. Just, I've never felt this before. Being wanted. Being cared for while being wanted." Aaron kissed my tears away, his hips resuming their steady rhythm. "You're so wanted. So cherished. Going to make you feel it every day if you let me." He reached between us, stroking me in time with his thrusts, and I came apart with a cry that was half his name, half incoherent pleasure. My body clenched around him and Aaron followed with a groan, pressing deep and spilling inside me. We stayed connected for long moments after, Aaron pressing gentle kisses to my face, my neck, my shoulders. When he finally pulled out, he cleaned us both with tender care, then pulled me against his chest, holding me as I trembled through the aftershocks. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For wanting me for me." Aaron tightened his arms around me. "Always, Benjamin. For as long as you'll have me." That night, wrapped in his warmth, I slept without nightmares for the first time since my rebirth. The winter passed in a blur of professional success and personal happiness. My relationship with Aaron deepened into something profound. We moved through each other's lives with easy intimacy, supporting without suffocating, challenging without diminishing. Dr. Chen offered me a research assistant position for the following year, essentially guaranteeing my PhD funding. My designs were being published in journals. I was building a reputation, a network, a future that belonged entirely to me. But I hadn't forgotten my other project. In stolen hours, I continued building my case against Samuel, Eli, and Marcus. I created anonymous email accounts and began researching them from across the ocean. Social media made it easy. Eli posted constantly about his life, never imagining someone might be documenting his indiscretions. Samuel had launched a professional networking profile, already laying groundwork for his future company. I learned that Samuel had met someone new, a junior executive named David. In my previous timeline, Samuel had been with me during this period, using my emotional and financial support while cheating constantly. Watching him pursue someone else now felt vindicating. David would learn the truth about him eventually, but for now, Samuel was distracted. Marcus was still working at his current firm, not yet the successful businessman he'd become. I made note of his colleagues, his projects, his patterns. Knowledge was ammunition and I was stockpiling. But the revenge felt less urgent now. Not because I'd forgiven them, I never would, but because I was building something more important. A life worth living. Aaron and I spent February in his apartment more often than not, the Danish winter keeping us indoors and intertwined. We cooked together, studied together, made love with increasing confidence and creativity. He learned what made me gasp, where to touch to make me beg, how to hold me when the ghosts of my past life crept too close. And I learned him. His tendency toward melancholy on gray days, his fierce protectiveness of the people he loved, the way he came apart when I took control and showed him the same care he gave me. One evening, as we lay tangled in his sheets, Aaron traced patterns on my chest. "Have you thought about what happens after graduation?" "Sometimes." "Why?" "Because I'm graduating in 4 months and I'll need to figure out what's next." He paused. "I've been offered a position at a firm here in Copenhagen. Good pay, interesting projects, room for growth." My heart clenched. "That's amazing, Aaron. You should take it." "I want to. But I also want you." He propped himself up on an elbow, looking down at me seriously. "Not asking you to make any decisions now. You still have over a year left in your program. But I need you to know, I'm in this. Whatever this is, I'm committed to it. To you." The word should have terrified me. Commitment had always meant entrapment before. But with Aaron, it felt like expansion rather than confinement. "I'm in this too," I said softly. "I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I want you in it." He kissed me then, slow and deep, and we made love with a new intensity, a promise being sealed between our bodies. Spring arrived and with it, unwelcome news from home. Eli had been arrested for drug possession. My mother called, hysterical, begging me to help with bail and legal fees. I listened to her sob and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt. Just a profound emptiness where my familial obligations used to live. "I can't help, Mom." "Can't or won't?" "Both." Eli made his choices. This is what consequences look like. "When did you become so cold?" "When I realized warmth was just letting people burn me." I hung up and blocked her number too. Aaron found me on his balcony afterward, staring out at the city. He didn't say anything, just wrapped his arms around me from behind and held me while I processed. "You did the right thing," he finally said. "Then why does it still hurt?" "Because you love them. You can grieve what you thought you had while still protecting yourself from what they actually were." He kissed the top of my head. "The hurt will fade. But you'll never regret choosing yourself." He was right. Each day the weight of my old life grew lighter. Each success, each moment of genuine happiness, each time Aaron looked at me like I hung the stars, it all reinforced that I'd made the right choice. By the time Aaron graduated in June, I'd already made my decision. When my program ended, I'd stay in Copenhagen. Maybe eventually we'd move, New York, London, wherever our careers took us. But for now this was home. We celebrated Aaron's graduation with his cohort, and I watched him receive his degree with fierce pride. This brilliant, kind, damaged man who'd chosen to see the best in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Who taught me that love could be gentle and still be strong. That night, in his apartment, I gave him my own graduation gift. A set of architectural drafting tools engraved with his name and the coordinates of the spot where we'd first met. Aaron held them carefully, then set them aside to pull me close. "I love you," he said simply. "I know we haven't said it yet, but I do. I love you, Benjamin Taylor. Your strength, your brilliance, your wounded heart that's learning to heal. All of it." The words cracked something open in my chest, something that had been sealed since my death and rebirth. I love you too. I didn't think I could anymore, but I do. We made love that night with new tenderness, speaking promises with our bodies that we'd already made with our words. Afterward, as Aaron slept peacefully beside me, I allowed myself to imagine a future I'd never dared dream of before. A life where I was loved, where I was chosen, where I mattered, and I was going to have it no matter what ghosts I had to lay to rest first. 18 months later, I received the email that would change everything. I was finishing my master's thesis, a comprehensive design for sustainable refugee housing that had already garnered interest from several humanitarian organizations. Aaron was thriving at his firm, designing affordable housing developments across Scandinavia. We'd moved into a larger apartment together, one with room for both our projects and the life we were building. The email was from Dr. Mitchell Williams, head of the Civil Engineering Department at Columbia University. They were hosting an international symposium on sustainable design and wanted me to present my work. All expenses paid, plus an honorarium that would fund another semester of research. The symposium was in New York, the same city where Samuel had built his company, where Marcus maintained his office, where Eli had returned after his brief stint at Columbia and subsequent legal troubles. Aaron found me staring at the email, my coffee growing cold. "What's wrong?" I showed him the message. His expression shifted from excited to understanding in seconds. "They're all there, aren't they? The people who hurt you?" "Yes." My voice was steady, but my hands trembled slightly. "Samuel's company is based in Manhattan. Marcus works in the financial district. And Eli? I don't even know where Eli is, but he's somewhere in the city." Aaron sat beside me, taking my hands in his. "Do you want to go? It's a major opportunity professionally." "That's not what I asked." I met his eyes. In the 2 years we'd been together, I told him more about my past life, or at least the version of events I could share without sounding insane. He knew about the betrayals, the systematic abuse, the way they destroyed me. He didn't know about the murder or the impossible rebirth, but he knew enough. "I want to face them," I admitted. "I've spent 2 years building myself into someone they can't touch. Someone successful and stable and loved. I want them to see what I became without them." "Is that all?" He knew me too well. "No. I want them to know I remember everything. I want them to understand that their cruelty had consequences. And I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I want justice. Not revenge necessarily, but justice. For what they did to me." Aaron was quiet for a long moment. "Okay. Then we go." You think I'm letting you face your demons alone?" "I'm coming with you, Benjamin. For moral support and because I want to see these people who were too stupid to recognize your worth." His voice turned fierce. "And if they try anything, if they so much as make you uncomfortable, they'll have to deal with me." The protectiveness in his tone made my chest warm. "I can handle them." "I know you can. But you shouldn't have to. Not alone. Not anymore." We arrived in New York on a crisp October morning, the city blazing with autumn colors. I'd arranged our accommodation near Columbia, a boutique hotel with a view of the campus where my life had first begun unraveling. The symposium didn't start for 2 days, which gave me time to prepare. Time to research. Time to understand exactly where my 3 betrayers currently stood in their lives. What I discovered was both satisfying and infuriating. Samuel's company, Right Innovations, was thriving. The sustainable technology firm had just secured a major contract with the city for smart building retrofits. He'd been profiled in Forbes, photographed at charity galas, positioned as a rising star in green tech. Everything built on the idea he'd stolen from Margaret Chin, his former colleague, the same theft I'd witnessed in my previous life but been too blind to recognize. Marcus had become CFO of a mid-sized investment firm, managing portfolios worth millions. He maintained an impeccable public image, married, 2 kids, active in his church. The offshore accounts he'd begun establishing were still small enough to avoid scrutiny, but growing. And Eli. My brother had bounced between jobs after his arrest, finally landing at a non-profit that served at-risk youth. The irony was nauseating. He was now supposedly helping people while having destroyed the one person who'd actually tried to help him. I sat in our hotel room, files spread across the desk, planning my approach. Aaron watched from the bed, sipping coffee. You look like you're planning a heist, he observed. Maybe I am. Just a legal one. Tell me the plan. I'd been thinking about this for 2 years, refining the strategy in quiet moments. Samuel's company is built on stolen intellectual property. Margaret Chin, his former colleague, developed the core technology but never got credit because Samuel was better at networking and self-promotion. If I could reach her, convince her to speak up, it would undermine his entire foundation. Is she still around? According to LinkedIn, she's teaching at MIT now. Quietly brilliant, still doing groundbreaking work, completely unknown outside academic circles. I pulled up her profile. I'm going to contact her. Share what I know. Give her the evidence and support to reclaim what's hers. Aaron nodded slowly. And Marcus? His offshore accounts violate firm policy and probably federal law. I don't have access to the hard evidence yet, but I know they exist. I'm going to anonymously tip off the SEC and his firm's compliance department. Let the investigation naturally reveal what he's been hiding. That could destroy his career. Good. He helped destroy my life. Turnabout seems fair. And Eli? My expression hardened. Eli was the one I struggled with most. Not because I loved him but because he was blood. Because some part of me still remembered the brother he'd been before resentment poisoned him. Eli's harder. He's already faced consequences. Arrest, rehab, career struggles. Part of me wants to let that be enough. I paused. But he never apologized. Never acknowledged what he did. So I'm going to confront him. Face to face. Make him see what his choices cost. That's dangerous emotionally, Aaron said carefully. Are you sure you're ready? No. But I need to do it anyway. The symposium began 2 days later in Columbia's main auditorium. I presented my refugee housing design to an audience of academics, architects, and humanitarian workers. The presentation went flawlessly. Years of trauma had taught me how to perform under pressure, and the response was enthusiastic. During the networking reception afterward, I felt him before I saw him. Samuel. He stood across the room, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, laughing at something a colleague said. Older than I remembered, than he would be in my previous timeline, but unmistakably him. Those same sharp features, that same charismatic smile that hid such cruelty. Aaron's hand found mine, grounding me. That him? Yes. You want to leave? No. I want him to see me. I straightened my shoulders and walked directly toward Samuel's group, Aaron at my side. As I approached, Samuel's eyes slid over me dismissively. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? We'd never met in this timeline. I was just another academic at a conference. Excuse me, I said, my voice steady. Samuel Wright, correct? I'm Benjamin Taylor. I was interested in your company's work on sustainable retrofitting. Samuel's professional smile clicked into place. Benjamin, of course. Your presentation was remarkable. Really innovative approach to modular design. He extended his hand and I shook it, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. Are you looking for opportunities in the private sector? Not currently. I'm more interested in research and humanitarian applications. I held his gaze. Though I am curious about the core technology Wright Innovations uses. It seems remarkably similar to work I've seen from MIT researchers. Dr. Margaret Chin, specifically. A flicker of something, nervousness, maybe, or calculation, crossed his face. Dr. Chin and I collaborated years ago. She was a brilliant colleague. But the commercial applications were my development. Interesting. I'd love to hear more about that collaboration. I'm actually having coffee with Dr. Chin tomorrow. She's a friend. I'm sure she'd be fascinated to hear your perspective on that shared work. The implication hung in the air. Samuel's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. I'd be happy to discuss it sometime. Though I'm quite busy this week. He was already looking for an escape route. Of course. I'll let Dr. Chin know you send your regards. I smiled, sharp and knowing. Enjoy the rest of the conference. As Aaron and I walked away, I felt him trembling slightly with suppressed laughter. That was brilliant, he whispered. Did you see his face? I did. And tomorrow, I'm actually meeting with Dr. Chin. You are. I emailed her last week. Told her I had information about intellectual property theft that might interest her. She agreed to meet. I glanced back at Samuel, who was now staring at me with dawning concern. Let him sweat. My meeting with Dr. Margaret Chen took place in a quiet cafe near MIT's campus. She was a slight woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. When I explained what I knew, carefully framing it as information I'd uncovered during research rather than lived experience, her expression shifted from skeptical to angry. I always suspected, she said quietly. But Samuel was so charismatic, so good at selling the vision. By the time I realized he'd taken credit for my core algorithms, he'd already secured funding and patents in his name alone. You could still fight this, I said. You have your original research notes, yes? Documentation of your work predating his company? I do. But lawsuits are expensive and time-consuming. I'd probably lose my teaching position fighting it, and for what? The chance to prove I'm right while he buries me in legal fees? What if you didn't have to do it alone? I slid a folder across the table. I've compiled a timeline of his company's development, cross-referenced with the dates of your published research. I've also contacted 3 colleagues who worked with both of you and are willing to testify that you developed the foundational technology. And I paused. I've arranged pro bono legal representation through a friend who specializes in intellectual property cases. Margaret stared at the folder, then at me. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Because theft is theft, whether it's physical property or ideas. And because people like Samuel Wright need to understand that exploiting others has consequences. She opened the folder, scanning the documents with increasing intensity. When she looked up, tears shimmered in her eyes. This is comprehensive. This could actually work. It will work. You created something brilliant and you deserve credit for it. Let me help you take back what's yours. We spent 3 hours planning the approach. Margaret would file a formal complaint with the Patent Office and initiate a lawsuit for intellectual property theft. The colleagues I'd contacted would provide depositions. And I would submit my research as an expert witness, demonstrating the clear lineage of Margaret's work to Samuel's commercial product. When I left the cafe, I felt lighter than I had in years. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Margaret deserved recognition for her brilliance. And Samuel deserved to have his empire revealed as the house of cards it truly was. Marcus came next. I'd made an anonymous call to the SEC the previous week, providing enough information to prompt an investigation without revealing how I knew about his offshore accounts. But I wanted to see his face when his world began crumbling, so I arranged to accidentally run into him at his firm's building. He emerged from the marble and glass tower on a Tuesday afternoon, phone pressed to his ear, looking harried. I positioned myself on the sidewalk, timing it so we'd collide. Sorry, excuse me. He barely glanced at me as he tried to step around. Marcus Chin? I asked, feigning recognition. Marcus Chin from Colombia? He stopped, finally looking at me with confusion. Do I know you? Benjamin Taylor. We never met, but my brother Eli Taylor mentioned you. Said you were friends back in the day. Recognition sparked in his eyes, not of me but of Eli's name. Eli Taylor. Yeah, I remember him. Haven't seen him in years though. How is he? Struggling from what I hear. But I'm sure you knew that already. Something shifted in his expression. I'm sorry, but I'm late for a meeting. Of course. Though I heard there might be some complications with those meetings soon. Something about the firm's compliance department having questions. I smiled pleasantly. But I'm sure that's just rumors. Have a good day, Marcus. I walked away before he could respond, feeling his confused stare boring into my back. Let him wonder. Let him worry. The SEC investigation would turn up his accounts soon enough, and the firm's internal audit would reveal the pattern of policy violations. I didn't need to do anything else, just plant the seed of paranoia and let it grow. That left Eli. I'd saved him for last because confronting him would be the hardest. Not because I still loved him, that had died the night I bled out in an alley, but because he represented every choice I'd made wrong in my previous life. Every time I'd sacrificed my needs for someone who didn't deserve it. I found him at the nonprofit where he worked, a modest building in Brooklyn that served as an after-school program for at-risk teens. The irony of Eli helping troubled youth when he'd been complicit in destroying me wasn't lost on me. I waited outside until his shift ended, watching him emerge with a group of teenagers he was clearly mentoring. He looked older, worn down by life in a way that might have made me feel sympathy if I didn't know what he was capable of. The teens dispersed and Eli pulled out his phone, checking messages. I approached. Hello, Eli. He looked up, confusion crossing his face. Then recognition, and something that might have been fear. Benjamin? His voice cracked slightly. What are you doing here? I'm in town for a conference. Thought I'd look up family. I kept my tone neutral, conversational. You look surprised to see me. It's been years. You cut us all off. He was recovering, finding his balance. Mom said you wouldn't even help when I got arrested. That was cold, man. Was it? I thought it was called having boundaries. Boundaries? I'm your brother. So you've mentioned. Usually right before asking for something. I studied him, this man who'd shared my childhood and betrayed me completely. Tell me, Eli, do you ever feel guilty? Guilty about what? About the life you expected me to sacrifice for yours. About resenting me for being the successful one when you were given every opportunity one gave up. About choosing your comfort over my well-being, again and again and again. Eli's face flushed. I never asked you to give up anything. You cried until I did. There's a difference, but the result is the same. I stepped closer and he instinctively backed up. I spent my entire life making myself smaller so you could feel bigger. And you repaid me by hating me for it. I don't hate you. Yes, you do. You always have. Because deep down you know that everything I gave you, you didn't earn. And that knowledge eats at you. Fuck you, Ben. His voice was shaking. You think you're so much better than me? You abandoned your family? I saved myself from people who only valued me for what I could give them. Including you. I held his gaze. I'm not here for reconciliation, Eli. I'm here to tell you that I remember everything. Every casual cruelty, every manipulation, every time you blamed me for your failures. And I want you to know that I'm thriving without you. I'm successful, I'm loved, I'm happy. And you had nothing to do with any of it. Tears were streaming down his face now, but I felt no satisfaction. Just a profound emptiness. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, Ben. I was jealous and stupid and angry and I took it out on you. You didn't deserve it. The apology I'd waited years to hear. And it meant nothing. You're right. I didn't deserve it. But thank you for finally saying it. I turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you're actually helping those kids. I hope you learned something from hitting rock bottom. But whether you did or didn't, it's no longer my concern. You're no longer my concern. Ben, wait. But I was already walking away, Aaron waiting for me at the corner. He pulled me into his arms without a word, and I let myself lean into him, exhausted by the confrontation. How do you feel? He asked quietly. Empty. But lighter. That's closure, love. It doesn't always feel good, but it's necessary. We flew back to Copenhagen the next day. Over the following months, I watched from across the ocean as the consequences of my actions unfolded. Margaret Chen's lawsuit gained traction, with prominent academics rallying to her defense. Samuel's company faced increasing scrutiny, and investors began pulling funding. Within 6 months, Right Innovations would file for bankruptcy, Samuel's reputation in ruins. Marcus was fired from his firm after the SEC investigation revealed his offshore accounts. Criminal charges were pending. His marriage imploded. His carefully constructed life collapsed like the house of cards it had always been. And Eli continued working at the nonprofit, apparently committed to actually making amends through action rather than words. I'd occasionally see updates through mutual connections. He was in therapy, staying sober, trying to be better. Whether it lasted, I didn't know and didn't particularly care. The revenge I'd planned so meticulously had come to fruition. Justice had been served. The people who destroyed me had faced appropriate consequences. So why did I still feel empty? I found Aaron on our balcony one evening in early spring, watching the sun set over Copenhagen's rooftops. He didn't turn when I joined him, just opened his arms so I could lean against his chest. You've been quiet lately, he observed. Want to talk about it? I destroyed them, I said softly. Samuel, Marcus, Eli, I systematically dismantled their lives. And it doesn't feel the way I thought it would. How did you think it would feel? Satisfying. Victorious. Like I'd won something back. I shook my head. But it just feels hollow. They got what they deserved, but it doesn't undo what they did to me. It doesn't give me back those years. Aaron was quiet for a long moment, his arms tightening around me. Revenge never fills the holes people leave, Benjamin. It's justice, and justice matters. But healing? That's something different. I don't know how to heal from what they did to me. Even in this timeline, even having avoided the worst of it, I still carry all those memories. All that pain. I know. He turned me to face him, his eyes warm with understanding. But you've been so focused on making them pay that you haven't let yourself actually grieve what you lost. Your trust, your innocence, your belief that love was safe. Those are real losses and they deserve to be mourned. The words cracked something open in me, and suddenly I was crying, deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place I'd been keeping locked away. Aaron held me through it, murmuring reassurances, letting me break apart in his arms. I'm so angry, I gasped between sobs. I'm so fucking angry that they made me believe I was worthless. That I wasted so much of my life on people who saw me as disposable. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to feel all of it. He kissed my forehead. But you also need to remember, you survived. You built something beautiful out of those ashes. Look at what you've accomplished, Benjamin. Look at the life you've created. He was right. Over the past 3 years, I'd built a career I was proud of, relationships that nourished rather than drained me, a sense of self I'd never had before. The revenge had been necessary for closure, but it wasn't what had healed me. Aaron had healed me. This relationship, built on honesty and respect and genuine care, had shown me what love was supposed to feel like. I love you, I said, cupping his face. I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes. I love you too. And I'm not going anywhere. He kissed me softly. Come to bed. Let me show you how much. We made love that night with a new intensity, born from emotional rawness and deep connection. Aaron undressed me slowly, kissing each revealed piece of skin, murmuring praises against my body. You're so beautiful, he whispered, hands mapping my chest, my stomach, my thighs. So strong and resilient and perfect. Aaron. His name came out as a plea. Tell me what you need, love. I need you to make me forget. Just for a while. Need to feel nothing but this. I've got you. He prepared me with tender thoroughness, working me open until I was trembling and desperate, then slid inside with a groan of satisfaction. The connection felt deeper than physical, like our souls were touching through our joined bodies. Look at me, Aaron commanded gently, and I met his eyes as he moved inside me. See how much I want you. How much I love you. You're everything to me, Benjamin. Everything. The vulnerability in his voice, the raw emotion in his eyes, it shattered my last defenses. I came apart under him, crying his name, and he followed moments later, pressing deep and spilling inside me. Afterward, as we lay tangled together, Aaron traced patterns on my back. I was thinking, he said quietly. What if we moved? Not immediately, but in a year or two. New York maybe, or London. Somewhere we could both find good opportunities. You'd leave Copenhagen for me? I'd go anywhere with you. This city is beautiful, but you're my home, Benjamin. Wherever you are, that's where I want to be. The simple certainty in his words made my chest tight with emotion. I want that too. A new start somewhere. Together. Then we'll make it happen. He kissed my temple. But first, you need to finish your PhD. And maybe we should talk about making this official. I pulled back to look at him. Official? Marriage? Partnership? Whatever term you're comfortable with. Aaron's expression was vulnerable but determined. I know marriage might be complicated for you after Samuel, but I want you to know, I'm committed to this. To us. For the long term. In my previous life, marriage had been a trap. Samuel's ring on my finger had felt like a shackle, binding me to someone who only valued me for my utility. But Aaron was offering something different. A partnership between equals, built on mutual respect and genuine love. Ask me when I finish my PhD, I said. Ask me then and I'll say yes. Aaron's smile could have lit the entire city. Is that a promise? It's a promise. We made love again, slower this time, savoring each touch and kiss. And as I fell asleep in Aaron's arms, I realized that this was what healing looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of something strong enough to outweigh it. 15 months later, I successfully defended my PhD dissertation to enthusiastic approval. My work on sustainable refugee housing had evolved into a comprehensive system that humanitarian organizations were already implementing. Dr. Chin offered me a postdoctoral position, but I'd already accepted a research fellowship in London. One that would allow me to continue my work while Aaron pursued a position at a prominent architecture firm there. We were moving forward together, building the life we'd planned. The celebration after my defense was small. My cohort, some professors, and Aaron, who watched me with such obvious pride that several people commented on it. As the party wound down and people filtered out, Aaron pulled me aside. Take a walk with me? We wandered through Copenhagen streets, familiar now after 4 years, until we reached the spot where we'd first met, the bar near campus where I'd been sitting alone, drowning in uncertainty. "Do you remember this place?" Aaron asked. "Of course. This is where you saved my life." "You saved your own life, Benjamin. I just walked beside you while you did it." He took my hands and I realized they were trembling slightly. "But I'm hoping you'll let me keep walking beside you. Permanently." He dropped to one knee, pulling a simple silver band from his pocket. "Benjamin Taylor, you are the strongest, most brilliant, most resilient person I've ever met. You've taught me that healing is possible, that love doesn't have to hurt, that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary." His voice cracked with emotion. "I know you've been hurt badly. I know marriage might still feel complicated. But I'm not asking you to trust the institution. I'm asking you to trust us. To trust that what we've built is real and strong and worth celebrating. Will you marry me?" I pulled him to his feet and kissed him with everything I had, all the love and gratitude and joy that had slowly replaced the anger and pain. "Yes," I said against his lips. "Yes, I'll marry you." The ring slid onto my finger, not a shackle this time but a promise. A symbol of choosing each other, every day in full understanding of what that meant. We married 6 months later in a small ceremony in London, surrounded by the friends we'd made and the life we'd built. Dr. Chin came, having become a mentor and friend. Tyler, my old roommate from my first timeline who I'd reconnected with, flew in from Boston. Even Margaret Chen attended, her successful lawsuit having restored her reputation and funding her own research lab. Eli sent a card, not an invitation to attend but a letter. An apology more thorough and genuine than the one he'd given in Brooklyn, along with an update that he'd been sober for 2 years and was still working with at-risk youth. He wrote that he understood why I couldn't have him in my life, but wanted me to know he was trying to become someone worthy of the brother I'd once been to him. I read it, felt a distant echo of the love I'd once had for him and filed it away. Maybe someday I'd reach out. Maybe not. Either way, it was my choice now. My parents didn't attend, I hadn't invited them. That bridge had burned when they'd chosen Eli's comfort over my boundaries. Perhaps someday we'd rebuild something, but it would be on my terms in my time. Or perhaps we wouldn't, and that was okay too. Aaron looked devastating in his suit, and when we exchanged vows, his voice was steady and sure. "Benjamin, you came into my life like a storm, powerful and transformative. You taught me that love is choosing someone every day in the small moments and the large ones. You showed me that healing isn't linear, that strength isn't the absence of vulnerability but the courage to be vulnerable anyway. I promise to always choose you. To celebrate your successes without jealousy, to support your dreams without resentment, to love you without conditions or expectations. Today and every day after." When it was my turn, I looked at this man who'd seen me at my lowest and loved me anyway. "Aaron, you showed me what I deserved. Not through grand gestures but through consistent kindness, patience and respect. You taught me that love doesn't have to hurt, that giving doesn't have to mean losing myself, that I could be chosen without owing anything in return. You helped me build a life worth living and showed me that home isn't a place, it's a person. I promise to always honor what we've built, to communicate honestly even when it's hard, to love you with the openness and trust you've earned. Today and every day after." The kiss we shared sealed more than just the marriage. It sealed the life I'd fought for, the healing I'd earned, the future I'd claimed. 5 years later, I stood in my London office, reviewing plans for a sustainable housing project in Jordan, when my phone buzzed with a message from Aaron. "Running late. Client meeting went long. Start dinner without me? No worries. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you. Love you more." I smiled, still unused to how easy love could be when it was healthy. 5 years of marriage and we still function like a well-oiled machine. Communication, compromise, mutual support. We'd had arguments certainly. Moments of frustration when work stress leaked into home life. But we'd navigated all of it together, neither of us keeping score or weaponizing vulnerabilities. My career had flourished beyond anything I'd imagined. My designs were being implemented across 3 continents, and I'd been offered a professorship at Imperial College. Aaron's firm had made him a partner, and he'd recently completed an award-winning affordable housing complex that was being featured in architectural journals worldwide. We'd bought a house in Islington, small but ours, with a garden Aaron tended obsessively and an office where I could spread out my plans. We talked sometimes about children, though neither of us felt rushed. We had time. We had security. We had each other. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, years of trauma making me wary. But curiosity won. "Benjamin Taylor speaking." "Ben. It's Eli." I hadn't heard his voice in 5 years. Hadn't expected to ever hear it again. My immediate instinct was to hang up, but something made me pause. How did you get this number? Tyler. He said it was okay to reach out. That you seemed like you were in a better place. Eli's voice was different, older, more grounded. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm 7 years sober now. Still working with kids. I got married last year. Her name is Sophia. She knows about everything I did to you, and she's been helping me understand why it was so wrong. I sat down, processing this unexpected contact. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm in therapy and my therapist asked me to make amends to people I've hurt. Not to make myself feel better, but because they deserve to hear it. He took a shaky breath. You deserved better than the brother I was. You deserved support and love and celebration, and I gave you resentment and manipulation and cruelty. I'm sorry, Ben. Not because I want anything from you, but because you deserve to hear it. The apology settled something in me, not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Closure. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly. I appreciate the apology. And I'm glad you're doing better. Are you happy? I heard from Tyler that you're married, doing amazing work. Are you happy, Ben? I am. Genuinely happy. Good. That's all I wanted to know. I won't bother you again unless you want me to. But if you ever want to talk or anything, Tyler has my number. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, watching the London skyline through my window. The anger I'd carried for so long had mellowed into something quieter. Not forgiveness, I didn't know Eli that, but release. He was no longer my burden to carry. Aaron found me there an hour later, still sitting in contemplation. You okay? He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. You look like you've had a revelation. Eli called. Aaron's expression immediately shifted to protective concern. What did he want? To apologize. Actually apologize, not to ask for anything. I pulled Aaron down onto my lap, wrapping my arms around his waist. And I realized something. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just at peace. That's growth, love. It's more than that. It's understanding that their choices don't define me. Samuel, Eli, Marcus, my parents, they all made decisions that hurt me, but those decisions say everything about them and nothing about my worth. I looked up at Aaron. You helped me learn that. You and this life we built. We built it together. Equal partners. He kissed me softly. I'm proud of you. For healing, for thriving, for becoming the person you were always meant to be. That night, wrapped in Aaron's arms in the home we'd made, I thought about the impossible journey I'd taken. From death to rebirth, from betrayal to justice, from pain to healing. I'd been given a second chance and I'd used it to build something beautiful. The revenge I'd planned so meticulously had been necessary, not for satisfaction but for closure. Samuel's company had collapsed, his reputation destroyed by the truth of his theft. Marcus had served time for tax fraud and would never work in finance again. And Eli was trying to be better, which was more than I'd expected. But the revenge wasn't what had saved me. Love had saved me. Aaron's patient, consistent, unconditional love had shown me what I deserved. Had taught me that choosing myself wasn't selfish, that boundaries weren't cruelty, that I could be whole without depleting myself for others. I'd spent my first life believing that love meant sacrifice. That to be worthy of affection, I had to prove my value through endless giving. Samuel, Eli, my parents, they'd all reinforced that belief until I was nothing but a husk, empty of everything that made me me. But Aaron had taught me a different truth. Love was supposed to fill you up, not drain you dry. Love was choosing someone because you wanted to, not because you owed them. Love was partnership, not parasitism. And I had it. Finally, impossibly, I had everything I'd never known I deserved. I love you, I whispered into the darkness. Aaron tightened his arms around me. I love you too. Always. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the Benjamin who died in that alley, betrayed, broken, believing he was worthless. And I thought about the Benjamin I'd become, successful, loved, whole. I'd gotten my revenge. But more importantly, I'd gotten my life back. And it was beautiful. 10 years later. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning as I was preparing for a lecture at Imperial College. The sender, Margaret Chin. Benjamin. I hope this finds you well. I wanted to share some news. The sustainable housing algorithm we developed together has just won the Pritzker Prize equivalent for engineering innovation. The committee specifically cited how it's housed over 100,000 refugees across 4 continents. None of this would have been possible without your initial research and your courage in helping me reclaim what was stolen. You changed my life, and through that, we've changed many others. Thank you. For everything. Margaret. I smiled, forwarding the email to Aaron with a simple message. We did good. His reply came immediately. You did good. I just provided moral support and excellent dinners. Our daughter, adopted 2 years prior from the foster system, burst into my office, all wild curls and gap-toothed grin. Papa. Dad says breakfast is ready and you're going to be late for your lecture if you don't come now. Emma was 7, brilliant and fierce, with a history of trauma that Aaron and I understood intimately. We'd chosen her just as much as she'd chosen us, and watching her heal and thrive in our home had been one of life's greatest privileges. Tell Dad I'm coming, I said, scooping her up and spinning her around to her delighted shrieks. As we headed downstairs to where Aaron was plating pancakes, I caught sight of our family photos on the wall. Our wedding day. Emma's adoption celebration. The 3 of us in front of our latest project. A community center in a neighborhood that desperately needed it. A life built on choosing myself first, then choosing the people who deserved my love. A life where giving was mutual, where love was safe, where I could be whole without making myself small. I'd been given an impossible second chance, and I'd used it to build something worth living for. The betrayals of my past life had shaped me, but they didn't define me. Samuel, Eli, Marcus. They were footnotes now, cautionary tales I sometimes shared when mentoring students who struggled with toxic relationships. What defined me was this: the love I'd found, the work I'd done, the family I'd built, the life I'd claimed. Benjamin? Aaron called from the kitchen. Food's getting cold. Coming. I kissed Emma's forehead and set her down. Race you to the table? She took off running and I followed, my heart full of a contentment I'd once thought impossible. I'd survived death and rebirth. I'd claimed my revenge and my healing. And in the end, I'd learned the most important lesson of all. I deserved to be loved. Not for what I could give, but for who I was. And I was. Every single day.